Hey y'all, it's your friendly neighborhood therapist. Now, look, normally if I see a story pop up on my timeline and it's really old, I'm like, okay, people probably already heard about it, so I won't talk about it or reshare it. But sometimes there are elements to the story that are very useful at all times. There are things in the story that we need to know now so that these type of situations don't occur again. Now, this story I'm about to share with y'all happened in 2012. My mental Rolodex don't go back that far, but I really don't recall hearing anything about it. But maybe it was trending at the time. I don't know. Some of y'all remember it, let me know. But I'm sharing it because there are several different elements to it. There is a lot of intersectionality to it, and there are things that y'all need to be aware of that would be useful to you all going forward. Let's get into it. So, this is Anna Brown, Richmond Heights, Missouri. This woman died in a jail cell in 2012 after being arrested at a hospital emergency room because the doctors there felt like she was fine. Nothing was wrong with her. She was screaming and hollering and saying she wasn't leaving until she was treated properly, until they figured out what was wrong because she was in pain. And they called the police. They told the police she was healthy enough to go to jail. The police arrested her, dragged her out of the hospital, put her in a jail cell, and within hours she was dead in the jail cell. All right. Y'all remember this story? Because I don't. But let me go a little bit more in depth. So, the St. Louis hospital that she went to defended their actions in this case. She was a homeless woman and she had sought treatment for a sprained ankle. Now, the autopsy that was done determined that her death in that jail cell in September of 2012 was caused by a pulmonary embolism or blood clots that formed in her legs and migrated to her lungs. Now, at the time, the newspaper obtained surveillance footage of her final moments in that jail cell. And in the video, officers were seen carrying her into the cell. The cell door closes and she was heard moaning and crying. I didn't look up all of that. I don't want to see that. I don't, I'm good. At the time, her family said that authorities treated the 29-year-old mother of two unfairly, and they hired a St. Louis based lawyer, Keith Link, at that time. Case is already done. I think the family ended up being paid by both the city, the hospital, and another entity, I think. I hope the police. I would have to look that up. But anyway, she was at St. Mary's Health Center in St. Louis, and they said that their staff followed medical guidelines and performed the appropriate tests, but they acknowledged the outrage being expressed due to the tragic event. This was their statement. Unfortunately, even with appropriate testing using sophisticated technology, blood clots can still be undetected in a small number of cases. The sad reality is that emergency departments across the country are often a place of last resort for many people in our society who suffer from complex social problems that become medical issues when they are not addressed. It is unfortunate that it takes a tragic event like this to call attention to a crisis in our midst. Now, I don't like that spin because the way I heard that was because we don't pay attention to mental health issues, things like this happen. She literally had a physical issue going on though. Like she wasn't dreaming it. It wasn't in her head. She had a physical issue actually happening. Now, the police, of course, at the time said that the officers had no way of knowing her dire condition, which they didn't. Officers are not doctors. If the doctors say she cool, what was they supposed to do? Now, they didn't have to drag her out like that. They didn't have to do all of that. But we already know how police act in those situations. Now, here's what though. Before this, she had gone to three hospitals complaining of leg pain. So, in the days leading up to her death, she had gone to three hospitals, including her visit to St. Mary's that led to her arrest for trespassing. She was wheeled out in handcuffs after a doctor said she was healthy enough to be locked up. Now, some background on her, too. She had already been struggling after a series of devastating setbacks, according to her family. So, I'm going to give y'all some background on her just so you can understand a little bit more. A New Year's Eve tornado in 2010 destroyed her home in North St. Louis. She and her two children moved to Berkeley, a St. Louis suburb, and she lost her job soon after. Her utilities were shut off because she had stopped paying the bills. Of course, she lost her job, so struggling, you know. And after a child welfare agent visited the home and found burn marks on the floor where she had lit fires to keep warm and other distressing signs, she was arrested for parental neglect. Police reported that at the time she had seemed confused. Now, her mother, Dorothy Davis, received custody of her children on the condition that She, their mother, couldn't also live with them, and her home was condemned. She lived in 4 homeless shelters from May until September. She joined the St. Louis Empowerment Center, a drop in center for the mentally ill. She was just starting to make progress, according to Kevin Dean, a peer specialist at that center. Now, Kevin Dean and another staff member at the drop in center recalled hearing her say that she had hurt her ankle and was in extreme pain. Her mother also noted that she called every single day to check on her children. Every day. At the time, her mother made the statement, if the police killed my daughter, I want to know. If the hospital is at fault, I want to know. I want to be able to tell her children why their mother isn't here. Now, here's the intersection and the lesson in this that I want y'all to know, because this was this didn't have to happen. It didn't have to happen. One, the intersection. Homeless people are not treated properly. We know black women are not treated properly, and especially in medical situations. We know this. We know there is a disproportionate maltreatment when it comes to certain populations: homeless people, mentally ill people, black women more specifically. She had a bunch of different intersections going on that would make people push her away. Like, she's fine. She can go to jail. I don't care that she's in pain. You see that? And let me just say something to y'all, make it real clear from a mental health perspective. Just because somebody is suffering from mental illness of any kind doesn't mean they are lying about being in pain. It's not always in their head, okay? It's just not always in their head. Now, the lesson here: whenever y'all go to the hospital, I am specifically talking to black folks and specifically talking to black women, but this also applies to any and everyone. If you take your behind to a hospital or ER, and this is not me faulting this woman, this is not her fault. This is just for future knowledge for y'all to have in these situations. Whenever you ask for care, whatever they refuse to do, have them put that in writing. Have them put in writing that they refused you, whatever it is, whatever the service is, whatever the care is, whatever the test is, whatever it is, have them put in writing. They said I was fine. They refused to look any further. Okay. Make sure they get that type of stuff in writing. Then I just like, this is really terrible. This is beyond terrible, because I always wonder how different would the scenario have gone if she was white. I'm sorry. Just like, y'all ever seen that movie A Time to Kill with Matthew McConaughey and Samuel L. Jackson? Remember in the court scene towards the end, he was giving his final statement to the jury, and he told that story. And then at the end of the story, he said, now imagine she was white. I felt like I've watched that movie 100,000 times. When he said that, that was what got Samuel L. Jackson's character off on that case. That's what made him go free. Because baby, I still cry when I see that scene. But the question remains: what if she was white? Would it have gone differently? But either way, this was a tragic situation. Yes, it is old. It is from 2012. But again, the lessons here: the intersectionality of it all, mental health, homelessness, being black in America, being a black woman in America, being a black woman in medical need. We know that that treatment is not equal across the board. We hear it all the time, how the maternal death rate is 3 times higher for black women, how we are not believed when we say we are in pain. There is still a segment of people who believe we don't feel pain the same. You know that? Because that was taught for generations in the medical field. That was from slavery. That was taught that we do not feel pain the same. That when we go and complain about pain, we're doing so because we want drugs. Yeah, those things are still, people still think that. And let's be clear, not only white medical providers think that way, because I have heard black, Indian, Asian, I've heard several different medical providers of all cultures and racial backgrounds believe that shit. Cultural competency cannot be taught like it's just a class that you have to pass. Either you have empathy for everyone and you take that oath to first do no harm, or you don't. There's no. And we have to stop treating mental health issues, which I don't know her. I didn't diagnose this woman. I don't know what her mental health issue might have been, but also she could have just fallen on really bad, hard times, given that background of how things transpired, and really been depressed, and really been trying, and really just been struggling. A lot of us are literally one or two paychecks away from similar situations, so we got to stop pretending like it's so far fetched. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all. I hope y'all have a beautiful, wonderful rest of the night. Remember, if you got to go to the ER for something and they do not want to treat you, get that down in writing. Because, see, if something does go wrong, they do not want that coming back on them that they refused you treatment. All right, y'all. Y'all have a beautiful, wonderful rest of the evening, and I will holler at y'all later.